So, you might have heard that The Witcher 3 is apparently getting a new DLC in 2026. And not just a little cosmetic update that lets you give Geralt a new haircut or something, but an actual full-blown story DLC that will bridge the gap between the ending of Witcher 3 and the beginning of Witcher 4. Now, the original, stressing the word original here because a lot more has recently come out, but the original source for this information was a Polish podcast. Several months ago on the Rock E. Boris show, they reported that CDPR were developing this DLC. They didn't know much more, whether it would be paid or free, how long it would be, or when exactly it would come out. They had just heard from multiple unnamed sources that this DLC was supposedly happening and that it would release before The Witcher 4. That was it though, that was the only source at the time, which is why I didn't cover it. From what I've researched, that podcast does have a very good track record when it comes to the news they break, but still, at the time, it was just a rumor from a podcast. I didn't want to clickbait you guys with a Witcher 3 DLC is coming video and then only have a podcast to back it up. That said though, in more recent times, CDPR themselves have made multiple comments on this subject, to the point where, well, I would say, based on my own judgment here, that this Witcher 3 DLC is probably happening, but you can decide for yourself as we get into everything we know. First off, to start, we've known for a while from a public earnings call CDPR did earlier this year, the calls they do regularly where they let investors know what to expect, but in one of those calls, CDPR said that they have multiple projects in the works that they haven't announced. Which, that part isn't surprising. At any given time, I'm sure they have at least a few mobile games and card games and that sort of thing in the works, but what was surprising is that in a later investor call, they said that one of those unannounced projects was being handled by Fool's Theory. And you probably know this, but Fool's Theory are the studio who are supposed to be making the Witcher 1 remake. It's kind of an interesting story there. Fool's Theory started out as a studio of ex-CDPR developers, ex-Witcher creators getting away from The Witcher and doing something different, but then before they'd even release their second game, CDPR announced the Witcher remake and that Fool's Theory would be the ones handling it, with CDPR having creative supervision. That was 4 years ago though, and since that announcement, we've heard pretty much nothing about the Witcher remake other than we know it's coming out after The Witcher 4. I mean, if you go to Fool's Theory's website, they still have the Witcher remake as only being in early development. It's not even under full production yet, even though Fool's Theory don't have any other games in the works. At least, nothing that's been announced. Which leads me to all of the info that's broken in the past month or so. First off, in the most recent CDPR investor call, they were asked about the Witcher 1 remake and what was going on with it, because as someone who listens to all of the investor calls, it really has seemed like the Witcher remake is just not a top priority right now, that it's kind of on the back burner at the moment. And what ended up getting revealed from that question about the Witcher remake is that currently, CDPR actually have more Fool's Theory developers assigned to this unannounced project than they do the Witcher remake. More importantly though, that number is more than 100. Over 100 developers from a studio founded by ex-Witcher devs are currently working on an unannounced project for CDPR. And to take that another step further, later in the same call, CDPR said outright that work on the Witcher remake is very limited right now, only a small team are assigned to it, and that the focus is on the unannounced project, getting that put together for release. And speaking of release, just this month, someone on the Witcher 4 subreddit noticed that Fool's Theory have started posting job listings for a marketing specialist to help them launch a CDPR-related project. Someone to assist with PC and console releases, to attend promo events and trade shows, that sort of thing. Which, I think you would agree, would be a very strange hire for the Witcher remake right now, because it's still in the conceptual pre-production stage, which I agree is crazy considering it was announced 4 years ago, but that's just the case. No, it seems much more likely that this job would be related to promoting the unannounced project, the rumored Witcher 3 DLC or expansion, which has had even more come out about it in the past week, which we'll get to in just a second. First though, I do need to take a moment to thank my very favorite sponsor, Factor, for sponsoring this video. And if you don't know, Factor are the meal delivery service, the one you should really consider if you're trying to eat healthy. I've said this before because it's true, but for 2 years at this point, I've been personally ordering from Factor out of my own pocket because their meals have solved every food problem I've ever had. If you're like me and you're a little busier than you'd like to be, then you might understand the struggle of not always having time to cook. And the unfortunate thing when trying to eat well while busy is that most convenient foods are either unhealthy, expensive, or just boring. Factor, though, are the rare exception because they're none of those things. Their meals are fresh, affordable, and very easy to prepare, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. And that's not even to mention that recently, Factor doubled the size of their menu, and each order you place with them is also fully customizable to your needs, from the number of meals to which meals you want each week. I love Factor, and I think you'd love them too, so to get started yourself, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code NEONFB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box, plus free breakfast for an entire year. If you're on the fence, just know that you won't be locked in for anything if you give them a try. You can cancel or skip weeks at literally any time with no charge, no consequences, so I'm just personally recommending give that heavily discounted first box a go, and I promise you won't be disappointed. Okay, so just a few days ago, a significant financial report came out that really broke this Witcher 3 DLC story wide open. Long story short, Noble Securities, who are a Polish stockbroker, put out a piece advising potential investors to load up on CDPR stock. Because, from what they've gathered, between CDPR's financial projections for the next couple of years, plus everything they've put out there about this unannounced project, but Noble Securities are projecting that the unannounced project is indeed a paid Witcher 3 DLC, which they're claiming will be released in May of 2026 and will cost $30. Personally, I'd take the specifics there, May and $30 with a grain of salt. Could be true, but who knows. From what I'm understanding, that part is just an educated guess in the broader context of, well, we actually talked about this over a year ago on the channel, but CDPR themselves projected a significant increase in profit for 2026. They said they project to bring in at least 2 billion zloty, that's the Polish currency of course, and I don't know, I always hear English people say zloty, or people that speak English say zloty. Feels like when Polish people say it, it's more like zloty. I don't know, you guys can yell at me in the comments whether I'm saying it right, how to say it, whatever. But they projected 2 billion between 2023 and 2026, and that's in profit, by the way, which they're just not on pace for right now. There's 1 year left of the 4 from 23 to 26, and currently they still need to bring in almost 700 million of the 2 billion. Which, for example, let's say 2026 needed to bring in 670 million to hit their 2 billion projection. That would mean CDPR are expecting 2026 to bring in 200 million more than 2023 did, which, I'll remind you, 2023 was the year Phantom Liberty came out. How would 2026 do that unless there's something significant releasing? And keep in mind, CDPR have already confirmed that Witcher 4 won't release in 2026. It's 27 at the earliest, which, of course, just leaves us with this mysterious project from Fool's Theory that has 100+ developers on it. I think it's pretty clear that that is what's likely to drop in 2026. But anyway, that is all of the confirmed information that's out there. I wanted to gather it all in one place for you guys. And now, I just really want to hear what you guys think. More specifically, what would you want out of a Witcher 3 DLC 11 years later? Personally, I talked about this with some other Witcher fans when I was in the Czech Republic recently for a Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 event, but I would love to see a Witcher 3 DLC that kinda clears the runway for Witcher 4. That is what I'm hoping this Witcher 3 DLC will do, because, well, we know Ciri has multiple endings in Witcher 3, and we also know CDPR have said that they're gonna honor all of those endings in some way. Whether she's Empress, she's missing, or she's already a Witcher, they're going to acknowledge all of those endings and still lead into her being a Witcher by the time of Witcher 4. So what I would think would be a good idea is handling those Ciri endings within The Witcher 3. Pick up with Ciri where you left off in your own game, whether she's already a Witcher, or she didn't return to Geralt and is doing her own thing, or she's training to be Empress but having doubts, like she says she is in Blood and Wine.
Though, actually, just between you and me, I'm not certain I'm cut out to rule, govern, all that.
Thinking you might give it up?
I can't say just yet, but I'm not willing to rule it out.
Take those 3 endings in The Witcher 3 itself and give each a unique story that leads to a similar place, to Ciri deciding to become, or already being a Witcher, realizing that protecting people is what she wants to do with her life. I can just envision a DLC that builds up to Ciri knocking on Geralt's door at Corvo Bianco, whether as someone Geralt hadn't seen in years because she disappeared in the bad ending, or as a defected Empress from the Empress ending, or as a fresh Witcher with limited experience from the Witcher S ending. And from there, we could finally get a proper Witcher 3 quest where Geralt and Ciri go take on a contract together. To me, that general idea would be a beautiful Witcher 3 epilogue, and it would get everyone together on the same page as far as leading into Ciri's story in Witcher 4 goes. That's just my idea though, maybe we'll get a whole DLC about Geralt making wine and playing Gwent, which I wouldn't complain about that either. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like. It really helps get my stuff out there. And if you want to be around for all of my Witcher 4 coverage in the future, and possibly this Witcher 3 DLC in 2026, then be sure to subscribe. Thank you, as always, to my patrons for your continued support. It's so appreciated. And that is all. See ya.